Uh,
If you don't mind, I'm
oh,
just going to record.
sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, sure. So last time we talked about some of the ideas I had, open source versus not open source, all that stuff. You had some good advice. I haven't talked to 100 people yet. I've talked to a few, uh, but not quite there yet. And if you're interested, I can show you. I've done some wireframing and some basic component building for some of the stuff that might explain my idea better.
Sure.
Or if you want to talk about AI, we can talk about AI. I know you had topics there for discussion too. So however you want to do it.
Why don't we do a little bit of both? We'll try to keep, both subjects kind of light. I'm recording for the AI component. Don't worry, I'm not going to take your idea and distribute it out on the interwebs, whatever they're calling it today.
Mhm.
The wow, wow, wow. Wow, Wild West. Um, yeah, but when we get to the AI component, I think that this is a great talking opportunity for both of us. So
Okay,
you want to share your wireframe? That's fine.
sounds good. I will do that now. All right. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Now I do, yes.
Okay, cool. So last time I was giving you the elevator pitch. I'll give it again. Basically, I think that in a world where we have all these complex systems, we lack a tool to develop everything from one place. We lack integration between systems engineering and software engineering, and it gets worse and worse when you have AI roaming an entire code base. I think it would make sense to do all of your development from a visual of the system and tightly integrate the systems engineering with the software engineering and also develop your components in such a way that they can be easily swapped out for a different implementation. For example, one written by AI or a different one. And, all that stuff I think should be integrated, including testing, everything like that. So this is the wireframe that I have so far. Just a basic view of a component, and you can select an interface and send a message to that specific interface, or you can select the output interface and see the messages that it's receiving. And then this component piece, you can eventually hopefully swap out different implementations. You can have the Python implementation, the Rust implementation, compare them head to head, maybe collect metrics, something like that. And then I'm trying to sketch out what it would look like if you started putting these components together into a larger subsystem, with the eventual goal of this being infinitely hierarchical, so you can zoom out as far as you want or zoom in as far as you want on how it all works. But the components would eventually be actual, you know, coded pieces, whereas you can start to operate with blocks visually, and you don't have to dive into the code if you don't want to. You can just play with the interfaces, play with different messages that go in and out of them, and that's that. So as far as like live code, I'm pretty basic right now. I just have been messing around in Storybook here, so I have a component where you can show the interfaces in and out. It's a little ugly, but and then I also just barely started with a kind of drag and drop map view and clickable elements here, so that the left panel would start to give you some options with things you can do. But that's basically all I have.
Okay. Few comments and concerns.
Okay.
Using other third-party tools to create an object, a component, a subsystem, um, or any application is going to allow the introduction of vulnerabilities into the environment.
Okay.
Unless you're going to use some static analysis tools, which will go through the components themselves and tell you why the security in that subsystem is incomplete or needs updated, you're not going to see it.
Hmm.
Most people
Okay.
think that tools are going to give them a secure implementation, and without having understanding about what's being processed through it, they don't have a clue as to whether or not your system's going to be secure. But with over 30 years experience and working in the software field and teaching developers that security is paramount because they never knew it was, or even what it was. You create tools with other people's, I don't know what you call this, framework.
Mhm.
It's going to lead to the baby being ugly. It's going
Okay.
to lead to another hole in the dike.
Which tool are you referring to? Are you referring to the tool that I would be selling to people, or do you mean the storybook tool I'm using?
If you're going to use the storybook tool to create the tool that you want to sell to people, yeah.
Got it. Okay, I think I'm new to Storybook, but this actually has all these it's just like a testing tool, basically. Under the hood, the React components, I won't get into the code right now, but like you can blow away Storybook and it'll all still stand alone. It's kind of just a front end development framework to help you test more easily. But yeah, all these things stand alone. So,
So it's one thing to build a framework to test your theory. It's
mhm,
another to think that it's resistant to attacks from cybersecurity threats.
mhm.
That's what I'm saying. You want to stand something up quick and test that isn't going to see production? Sure, go ahead. Be my guest. That doesn't mean, however, that you can take that software and put it out into production because it did everything that you wanted it to do without testing it.
Mhm. Makes sense.
Good. That's the point I wanted to get across. Because
Mhm,
because you're using a tool to develop a tool doesn't make it secure.
mhm. Got it. That does make sense. Okay.
You'll have to take additional steps, and if you want to talk about what those steps are, we can do that at a later time.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to certainly look into those extra steps and make sure those bases are covered.
Okay. So, Steve, while I have you here, as I understand it, you work in artificial intelligence. Maybe we can clear this screen and I'll start the
Sure.
conversation again.
Hmm.
Hi, Steve. As I understand it, you work in artificial intelligence. Is that right?
That's right.
That's amazing. So, when you're employing artificial intelligence, where do the tools reside?
The tools.
The
What do you mean by
AI
this?
tool.
Oh, well, I guess it depends what you mean. Do you mean the tool used to create AI, or do you mean the deployed, models or things like that?
You can talk about any of them. Let's talk about all of them.
Okay. Well, I mean, where do they reside? I guess if you want to think about like a basic PyTorch model of some sort. Like a classic one is the NIST data set, where you're taking a bunch of images and inferring what digit is handwritten in those images. Then, you would use PyTorch locally to develop the model, and that's on a developer's computer. And that produces a little static file that is the model. And then you can take that model and run inference on it. I'm actually not too familiar with like how you productionize that in the real world, but like I know you can do that with PyTorch and it's a little slow. And I think there are ways to also use, faster C++ or Rust based inference engines too for the same model. But
Yeah,
those
I
would
think
run.
that a lot of things that people call AI really aren't AI specifically, but that buzzword does come up and people seem to like it because it gets their product a little more attention. Now, you said PyTorch. I'm not familiar with that tool. Can you explain what it is?
Or yeah, it's a really common deep learning tool. So it allows you to train neural networks and things like that to, yeah, use deep learning to solve a particular task.
Deep learning. So deep learning is like machine learning, but it's not necessarily AI. But tuning and prepping the large language models that AI uses is essential to getting the tools running, correct?
Well, I would say deep learning is a subset of machine learning, but it's entirely separate from large language models, LLMs. But those are pretty interesting too. I mean, you can, back to your question of where it lives, if you're talking about LLMs, typically people are using it against OpenAI. So they're writing a service to hit OpenAI's server, and they basically have a black box that contains the LLM. And, you put in your prompt and they give you back text, but you can also self-host it with Olama and things like that. So there are ways to have it live on your own hardware if you want it to.
So you have a choice to either self-host your intelligence tools, and we're not saying it's a full-blown Skynet yet, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's a secure method to save the data and preserve it without it getting out into the wild, right?
Correct. Yeah. You're
Because
talking
you
about,
have control of the resources.
yes. Yes. You're saying your prompts and the things that you say to it. Yes. If you self-host it, then OpenAI can't spy on you.
Right. But if you're not self-hosting, say what you just said.
Then, well, then OpenAI is definitely spying on you. They have a record of it. So,
Not only do they have a record of it, but you're authorizing them to be inside your network because you're sending them data. And now they have a connection from you to them that they can reach back through to you. Oh my gosh, the cybersecurity has been breached.
mhm.
And you
True.
don't know where the data is hosted when you do that. For instance, OpenAI might be fairly tame, harmless. Um, I'm not going to judge that at this time. But what I can tell you about is DeepSeek. Are you familiar with DeepSeek?
Vaguely.
Yeah, they're similar to OpenAI. They're run by the Chinese Communist Party. How safe do you think that is?
Who knows? Probably not very.
I would agree with the latter, not the who knows. I'm going to tell you, it's not safe because anything that the Chinese Communist Party gets involved with has malicious intent. And, there were a couple people that were in the federal government, United States federal government, that used DeepSeek. And I can't remember if they were fired or reprimanded, but the main problem was they broke policy by allowing data to be sent and stored in mainland China because that's where DeepSeek is hosted. So it's essential to know where is your data going. So if you're not hosting it, somebody else is. But who is that somebody and where are they? Because if your data gets out there, and let's say it commits a data breach on several of your clients because something, I don't know, was added to their understanding of who you are and who you do it to, you could be liable for um, claims by the EU or California for the data breach and then absorb significant fines. Everybody likes AI. It's a great tool. Works fantastic. Does this and this and this and this. And the only thing that I have to say about that is the more you give up your personal um, protection, your personal use of technology by utilizing tools that somebody else provides, the less control you have over the situation. If you're going to have it write an anonymous letter, to anonymous people because you want text for the body of the letter, that's probably going to be okay. If you want it to solve your financial situation with your company by adding in accounting records and the client base and what you're selling and stuff like that, it's going to be a bad day for you someday in the not too distant future. Would you agree?
Yeah, you have to be careful who's processing your data, and we're increasingly farming that out to people through cloud computing and all that stuff. Um, I love the idea of self-hosting. It's not easy, and not a lot of people know about it. So I think there's an opportunity to have better tooling so that your average person can do it. Actually, I've done some videos about that too. Like take back tech is the page key thing. So we're trying to make it more accessible with little success so far. But yeah.
Well, what I would suggest after I put this up on YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn is that you give me your links that you want to promote with the video that we're recording right now, and I'll help promote you
Oh, thanks.
because I don't believe we have enough people out there doing cybersecurity. I know we have a deficit of 5 million people with experience and
Wow.
AI. And AI is so new that if a recruiter comes knocking on your door or your email, like they do to me 100 times a day, and they're asking for 15 to 20 years experience with AI, you know what you can tell them?
Hasn't been around that
Next,
long.
next, because it hasn't been around that long. Those are people fishing for data, fishing for resumes because they want to employ people, I don't know, maybe like the North Korean IT people that have gotten into uh, contracting fraudulently for companies in the United States. That's a different conversation for a different day. But AI has good and bad tendencies, and I appreciate your feedback about it. I really love self hosted environments because you can
Absolutely.
control everything going on in it. And that's what we need. Yeah, the tool's great, but don't let your data out.
Yeah, I feel like we could have a long discussion about that. I'm curious. I'm curious how you solve the problem of, hosting a public facing service. Do you use a public cloud provider for that, or do you set up some sort of VPN or DMZ? Have you ever done that? I mean, we don't have to get into it now, but definitely interesting
I've done
topic.
all of them, and they all have their own benefits. So it depends on the use case.
Hmm. Okay.
And AI has some great benefits, but in the use case that I'm seeing most people utilize, they need a self hosted service
Hmm.
so they can control the communication back and forth and the banter going on.
Gotcha. Do you ever self-host that for people and make it available to them, or is that something?
It's something that I'm willing to do. I have started it. I'm putting it together for our own use, self-hosting it.
Mhm.
So if that's
Awesome.
something that interests you out there in YouTube land or LinkedIn space, give us a call. Direct message me. Steve and I might be your go-to team.
Who knows? Great.
That's a great segment. So that'll get at least one or two shorts out of it, and we can have another conversation and just increase it. I just think that the more you get out there, the more people want to know because they really
Mhm.
don't.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. That's very interesting. I wonder if there's a. I mean, it seems like you have a lot of experience in sales. If there are people who feel that they need this, maybe that is something like the self-hosting of LLMs. I don't know. Seems like it's something that you could get started with and see if it's profitable, and then scale. I mean, as a business idea, I don't know. Maybe you're already doing that, but yeah, fulfillment doesn't seem that hard once you've done it once. So it's a matter of finding people who want it.
I don't think that that's going to be a hard thing to do. If you're offering protection for artificial intelligence communities, self-hosting is the way to go.
Hmm, definitely. Okay. Interesting. Very
Awesome.
cool. All right. Do you mind if we stop the recording, or do you think you still want to grab more?